morning, everybody, and welcome to another She Myth Eliminator story. Boy, oh boy, this morning I am with Lisa Balthaser, and I'm going to say to you that I have been watching. Lisa's actually been a community member in a number of different communities that we've got going with Vicky Helm and myself, and I've been seeing her in our group for about a year now. So I am totally stoked that I actually get to have a chat with Lisa, get to know who she is, because I've sort of been seeing her out the corner of my eye, commenting on various different things, and I've been seeing her inside of our community being an active member. So I was pretty excited when I saw Lisa's name come up on the list. I was like, yes, I want to speak with her, and I can't wait. So Lisa's coming to us today all the way from, well, right now she's in Reading, but normally she's in Philadelphia. She is a very successful entrepreneur in her own right. She does a lot of coaching and consulting in the marketing space, and I'm excited to have a chat with her today about her She Myth Eliminator story. So welcome to the show, Lisa. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm stoked that you're here. So let's have a little bit of a chat. Tell everybody like what your backstory is. What is, who is Lisa, and what is she about, and what has she been up to for the last couple of decades?
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in a really small rural town in Pennsylvania called Hamburg. And when I grew up, the expectation for me was to get married, not go to college, but get married. And I really wanted to go to college. I actually had an incident with a high school architectural drawing person. I wanted to be an architect at one time. And he actually told me I would never make it as an architect, right? Yeah. And he said, it's not for women. Now, you can never get away with this stuff today, but this is back in the early 80s. So it's a long time ago. And I remember being really upset that he didn't think that I could be successful. So I did end up buying into all the wrong thinking. And I ended up getting married when I was, 18? Yeah, 18 or 19. 19. God, it's so long ago, I don't remember. Is that sad? So, yeah, I ended up getting married very, very young. And I will tell you, I was not an adult yet. Honestly, I mean, that is way too young to get married. There may be some people that are mature enough at that age, but I was not. And I married military. So it was a rude awakening, very rude. And we ended up getting divorced a year later. So I was married at 19 and divorced at 20, which is super young. And I remember feeling a lot of shame about that because I was so young. And, because when I wanted to go out to date, I actually had to tell people that I was divorced and I was really young. And there was always the assumption, this always cracked me up. There was always the assumption that I had children, that I had to get married. Wasn't true. I didn't have children. I just knew it wasn't going to last. So, and I'm not proud of being divorced. I actually don't believe in divorce, believe it or not. And I spent many years after that dating and trying to find myself. And my grandmother in particular, I remember her specifically saying, Lisa, when are you getting married? You're getting older. You really need to get married. Like this was just the expectation from where I grew up. And I just wasn't finding the right person. And I really had wanted to go to college. And I ended up going to college from when I was 25 to 35 as I was working my way up the corporate ladder. And I don't recommend that to anybody, but I did that. And ended up in in an actual abusive relationship after time. A little backstory from that though. I actually my real dad, both of my parents got divorced and were remarried. Okay. my real dad was an alcoholic. So I had a lot of, what do you want to say, daddy issues. Like I felt abandoned. So my whole life I was falling into the trap of the need to feel loved, the need to feel accepted. Um, that comes along with that feeling of abandonment from when one of your parents is absent, not necessarily physically absent, but emotionally absent from my life. So there was that void that was always trying to be filled. And I was going, I had relationship after relationship failed every single time. But I felt the need to be in those relationships because I felt that I needed a man to support me. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that because it was something that was not common in my family, that there was a single female that made her own way. And so it was just kind of played into that expectation of growing up and getting married and growing up and getting married. And the thing that was drilled into my head my whole life. So after many, many, many codependent failing relationships, one day I was just like, enough. I cannot do this anymore. And I made a conscious decision not to date at all. And it was probably the best decision that I made. It forced me to be okay with myself and to understand myself. And when I was younger, you could have told me that all day long, and I would have never understood it. I would have never believed you. It was something that I had to come to on my own. But once I came to the realization that I'm okay all by myself, it gave me the power, the confidence, to just exist in my own world. So yeah, so now I'm, because even now, and by the way, I'm 55 years old. And even now, people say to me, don't you want to find somebody? Even now, years later. And I mean, if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. There's the other side of it that I do want to talk about, and that's the financial side of it. Being a single female has been hard. It's been really, really hard at times, and I've almost been homeless a few times. Home's been in foreclosure. I've pretty much lost just about everything. I laugh now. It's not funny. It happens. It's reality. It is hard when you're by yourself. You have one income coming into your household. You are the sole provider, because the other end of the coin is that being single my whole life, I was forced to not be able to accept positions at companies that were available necessarily, because I needed positions that paid basically a man's salary so I could survive. And that was a challenge my whole life. And, I always think, would it have been easier? It may have been easier being married, but I would not have been happier being married. It would not have allowed me to be everything that I am being married. And I'm very, very, very aware of that now. And
what's interesting about your story, Lisa, so I'm thinking about, just those, often we kind of go through life, and when we're younger, we sort of, you feel that you don't know any better, so you're kind of looking to the outside world for that guidance and for advice as to what you should do. And when you're looking around you and this is what you're seeing, you think, well, that's what's right, that is the pathway that I should be going down. And often we go down that pathway and find, oh, actually that's not real, that's not the path I should be on at all, right? And then you have that moment of, this is not where I want to be. I need to kind of do a big U-turn here and go, and go somewhere else. But then what has happened with you is that U-turn that you made, you took at that time, all the baggage with you that then said, well, you're a divorcee, you must have children, because surely that's the only reason you would have got married, because there can't be any other reason being 19
Right.
and have made that kind of decision. So all of these stereotypical she myths start to come out, these assumptions that this is the way that your life should have been, because that's how um, you know society, most people, life plays out for them. And then going through life and getting to a point where you're really comfortable with who you are. But what's also fascinating about this, and it's a really, like, you're talking about this whole financial side of things, that had you been a male, the question is, would your life have been as challenging? The answer
Probably
is
not.
no, because there is no other expectation with that. It would be okay to be a single male. It's okay for that male to get a job that is well paying. When we look at all the statistical data, women are being paid well under their male counterparts. So, if a male chooses to be on their own, which is totally okay, they will be okay and most likely do extremely well. On the other side, a female decides, actually, I'm actually okay in my own skin. I'm loving life. I don't need to be dependent on anybody else. And not that every relationship is a codependency, because it's not always like that. But you're okay in your own skin. But yet having to fight and challenge, all the obstacles that have come your way over a period, over that period of time. It's such a stereotypical thing that we're unable to be successful without a life partner beside you.
Right. And something that you just said there made me come back to another thing that happened to me. And people, this was I believe it was in the 90s. I was a manager of a financial so a finance company branch. Okay. And I'd been in banking and finance for many years, and I worked my way up. I was going through college. I became a manager of a finance company branch, and I was the only female manager. I would go to managers' meetings, be totally ignored. They would talk football. I would watch the game the night before if I knew there was a game, so I would have something intelligent to talk about. Didn't matter. They ignored me, talked over me. It was like I was not there. It was like they did not want me there. And the worst part about it is that my district manager was based in my office. And come crunch time at the end of the month, he would throw things on my desk and expect that I would do them just because he told me to. That did not happen. I was not the pushover. It was hard. It was hard being the only female because I was definitely treated differently. I found out that my male counterparts got paid more than I did. And I was told, and this was in the 90s, it wasn't that long ago. I was told that, well, they have families to support. Excuse me? I had a whole household to support also. So what about that? So yeah.
The crazy thing is, like, we often, the women I've been talking to were a little bit more mature, and so we talk about it in the sense that it was some time ago and things have changed. And I'd like to think that things have completely changed, but the reality is that in a lot of cases, even nowadays, these things are still happening today. So part of this whole series of having these conversations is like, it's kind of like the penny is dropping every single time I have a conversation with somebody about their story, their history, the she myths that they have had to deal with. It gives me more fuel to want to do something about it, because when you've got daughters, granddaughters, friends, nieces, etc., that are actually growing up in this day and age, how can we as as women who can be the mentors and the guidance and the leaders, how can we help these women? Because a young woman I'm talking about, because if you were to go back, let's say, for example, now you were to go back and you were to give the Lisa, the 19 or 18-year-old Lisa, before she was going to get married, a piece of advice, what piece of advice would you have given yourself back then, knowing what you know now?
I would definitely have a talk. And the thing is, it's not like nobody said this to me. But I don't think I was in a place where I could receive it at that time. But what I would really want to have a conversation with myself about at that age is to really to go after my dream, because now I have my own business. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy streets, okay? It was not. It was hard. But it's worth it because I get to do things on my own terms. And I find that that was the one thing when I was working for other people, I literally felt like I had a ball and chain I was dragging around every day. And I dreaded going to work. It was hard. But there's so much freedom in being able to just be yourself, be your true self, and move towards the vision and the mission that you see for your life and not someone else's.
I think that is a fantastic piece of advice, and often we don't do that. So the more we can, shout that as loud as we possibly can to empower and encourage others to follow their dreams and do what it is that, and not, often when we say this, it sounds a little bit hairy fairy. Follow your dreams,
Right.
like I'm going to be a fairy princess, but it's not about that. It's like, what is it that you really want to be doing, and just go for it. Do that. Give that a go. Because the worst thing that can happen is you get there and you go, actually, this is not what I want. You can make a new decision. So I'm always, I'm a firm believer you are the person who has the control of the destiny in which you take, the destiny that you create for yourself. You are in control of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's based on the decisions in which we make. So follow your dreams, and you'll always make the right decision if you keep that as like your North Star. That's where I'm headed. That's the dream that I'm trying, that I'm creating for myself, and just keep moving yourself towards it. So I want to say thank you so much for being on today's show. Thank you for sharing your She Myth story, and also your advice to other women out there. I want to say well done. Congratulations on your success for being a strong woman and just going for it and getting to a point where you're just super, empowering other women, being a coach and a consultant, and just making sure that you're doing everything you can to enable other people to be the very best that they can be. So thank you very much for doing that. And thanks for being on the show, and lovely to finally meet you and to have you here.
Thank you. Same. I loved meeting you.
So everybody else, I'll be back again for another She Myth Eliminator story tomorrow morning. But I also want to let you guys know that on the Take a Stand show today, I've got a very special guest with me. Susie Dent is the guest for the She Myth Eliminator series, for the Take a Stand show today. That's going to be airing in about an hour and a half at 10 a.m. Brisbane time. Tell you a little bit about Susie, because she has, you're going to see a lot of her over the next little while. For those of you that know the name Ralph Harris, a British, something in the entertainment industry, Susie has been in the entertainment industry for pretty much her entire career. She's in her late 50s now. And at the moment, there is a big case where Ralph Harris has been, he's actually been, what do you call it? Like, taken down. He's been, what's the word? Like, anyway, for sexual harassment, etc., etc. So he's gone through a massive court case. But Susie was one of the instrumental women who actually stood up and talked about that, and actually brought justice to many, many other women, and also, as I said, making sure that this particular man got his comeuppance. So join us on that show, because she'll talk through that. She'll also give you some other things that she has done over a number of years. It will be a very raw and real conversation that we will be having, because that's just how Susie is. So join me on that show and listen to what Susie has to say, because I can assure you that over her lifetime, she has had a number of obstacles that she has had to face, and where she's at right now, it will give you some inspiration and motivation to absolutely follow your dreams. So join me on that show in about an hour and a half's time. But for now, guys, I want to say thank you very much for joining me on another episode of the She Myth Eliminator story. I'll be back again tomorrow, 8 a.m. Brisbane time, with another amazing woman sharing her story too. So thanks very much for joining me, and bye for now.